It's the Mike Tech Show, show number 858. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Mike Smith. Thank you very much for downloading and subscribing to the show. Please visit the main website at miketechshow.com. You can email me questions and suggestions for show topics. Just email me at miketechshow@gmail.com. Don't forget to visit my YouTube page for all the videos for the shows. That's youtube.com/Michael Smith MTS. Don't forget to click subscribe. All right. This show is brought to you by Instant House Call. Remotely support your customers if you are an IT pro or an MSP. This is what you need. They provide unattended and on-demand remote access. You can try it free by clicking on the link on my website at miketechshow.com. And if you use the promo code MikeTechShow, you get that free 15-day trial to kick the tires, play with it. You will love it. That's Instant House Call. This show is also brought to you by Magnus Box. I have a Magnus Box story in a couple minutes. They back up everything. Office 365. Works on all servers, all operating systems. Whatever you run, Magnus Box can back up your client's files to the cloud. It's inexpensive for you to be able to resell it, and you can easily become a partner. Go to magnusbox.com, request a demo, and they will give you the same features in the demo that all the paid partners have, so you can try it out. And when you buy it and when you sign up, you mention you heard it here on the Mike Tech Show, and you will get free white labeling and 50% off your first 3 months platform fee. Got to try it. Go to magnusbox.com for all your clients' online backup needs. Great show lined up for tonight. Have lots of things to talk about, but first, I would be remiss if I didn't say, go Eagles. I am wearing my Eagles shirt and Eagles hat. Eagles, of course, are in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. Looking forward to that this Sunday, and excited about seeing that. Just a quick note, next week, February 16th, there will be no show. So no show next week. The next show will be Thursday, the 23rd, February 23rd. So I'm busy all next week, and my wife gets in on Wednesday, and I'm like, nope. I am no show Thursday night. So taking a week off. All right. Speaking of Magnus Box, and I'm going to talk about backing up SharePoint. Also have a DNS story, a VPN fix, printing fix. We're going to do a little bit about SSL, secure socket layer, upgrading Windows 11 Home to Pro, and setting up Siri alerts from your iPhone. And then we have an email. So, which is also SharePoint related. A lot of SharePoint stuff, because I've been bringing that up because I have this big SharePoint migration that has went perfect. It is great. They're now rolling that out to all the users. Everybody's accessing it online. And the first thing, can you trust Microsoft to back everything up? Well, we don't feel comfortable. We want to have it backed up every night in the cloud. So now we're going from cloud to cloud. So Magnus Box supports SharePoint. I've never done that. There is a great tutorial that they put out in the knowledge base that walks you through step by step. And as long as I have global admin permissions with an account, you take the client that's on a workstation, because you can't just launch it from the cloud. It's gotta pair and run and execute from a workstation. So all I had to do was add another protective item, picked SharePoint, and just followed all of the prompts, signed into the account. It filled in everything else for me. As a matter of fact, they walk you through where you can do that on the web. And I went through that and added it to their to the job to run every night. Now the first job was like 350 gig, and that took 56 hours over last weekend, but it was successful. And now I have SharePoint being backed up via Magnus Box. Clients happy, I'm happy as we transition away from the on-prem server, which brings up another little story and the first link for tonight. Well, actually, I will link the SharePoint instructions. Then the profile wizard, which you've heard me talk about a lot of times. Well, for this same client, they have a dozen employees that all their laptops are married and on the domain of their domain controller server, but they're not in the office anymore. And that's why they're going to be getting rid of that office, because what the pandemic taught them is they can live online and do all of their work all the time. So we're getting rid of the server, and we targeted the end of February, so we're ahead of schedule. But now we have the process in place. Users have to come in and schedule it to where my son will meet them. We've already taken the test laptop and put a procedure together using the Profile Wizard, a free utility, so we can decouple that machine from the domain and from that server. And we want to, it's very simple, and it maintains the profile. That's the key. Downgrading from domain controller to a work group, but keeping the profile exactly the same. And the first two things you do, you got to create two local accounts. We create an admin account on every system that's a local account with our master password or a password that the owner has picked. Then you got to create a local account that matches the name of the account, or at least the one you're going to transfer to, from the domain. And it's very simple. Once you've created that, you launch that program, Profile Wizard, it installs and runs, and you just follow the prompts, and it's a piece of cake. And it is an incredible utility that years ago a listener put me onto, and it is just, I've used that so many times for when we need to retire a server and you want to move from a server or move from one domain to another, but maintain the profile. Lots of great options. Okay. DNS changes. You're going to like this story. So, because of Exchange 2013, the support being retired this year, SureWeb, which is the hosted exchange provider that I use for all my clients, anybody who's still on the older server has to be migrated. So I have a client with only a couple accounts and haven't had to touch it or do anything for a long time. And she received the emails that, okay, we now have to change the DNS because the migration happened. And so right as after the migration happens, you have to go in and you got to change the auto discover, the 2MX records. You have to edit the SPF record. And then you have to check what is the name of the server that now needs to be used on the profile for getting email on your Android or iPhone device. So I now have to make those DNS changes. It's been a couple years since I've had to access that. So I go to their GoDaddy login. I get logged in. The DNS is not available. I see the name servers as Wix. So I call, I'm talking to my client. I said, so you've had your website updated and someone has done this with Wix? And she says, yes. I said, well, they took the easy way out and had the name servers changed, and now I can't make any changes. So she puts me in touch with the person who's now maintaining it. But this is the second person. There was someone else, and thank God they had the admin login to do administration, because they gave me access to the account and I couldn't make any changes to DNS. So once I was in as like the super admin or whatever you call it under Wix, I had my choice. I can make the DNS changes right there. Or do I go through the process of putting the name servers back on GoDaddy? And I decided I'll just make the changes there. Since I have admin access, I made the DNS changes. I swore that I made the web designer who understood swear that they will never make a DNS change without consulting me. So just did that. And it's funny today, another client who I didn't even know they were being migrated, they sent me the email and I had to quickly go in and change the DNS today. And luckily we were able to get access. And again, that was Network Solutions, that one. And I'll tell you, Network Solutions, I know they were the first. They're big. I guess I'm a GoDaddy bigot for DNS. It's so easy, and I'm so used to manipulating DNS changes within GoDaddy. The Network Solutions, there was like some extra steps that I'm like, okay, but I did it and made all the changes, and he's good to go. And that was a realtor. So I've been living with this now for a couple weeks, and I still got a few more weeks because there's lots of clients, and luckily they're being spread out, which is nice. They're not like all happening one day. My biggest client, where I got to worry about 50 email accounts and the DNS changes of 2 domains luckily on GoDaddy, and I have access. That's going to be happening February 20th. I know because I have that marked, and being able to go in and make that happen. And I got to arrange that. My son has to be on site. And then there's a local IT presence. There's someone who does more coding in their ERP system than he does with everything else, but he's a big help. So anyway, that is something I am continuously working on. Had a problem last Friday night with the VPN for a CPA firm. All of a sudden, OpenVPN stopped working. Couldn't connect. I tried my profile and I was like, it's not connecting. I go in, I log into, it's an Untangle firewall, and I'm looking, I'm like, everything looks great. Everything's fine. Everything's set. Nothing's changed. So I call Untangle. Their support closes at 8 o'clock. I was like, 8 p.m. and there's no support over the weekend for Untangle. I'm like, okay, it's going to be Monday. And I contact the owner and I said, can you hang in there till Monday? Because I need support on this. And he's like, yeah. He says, that's not a problem. So I start to think, what could have changed that nobody knew? That at least nobody was aware of. And that's the thing, because everything was working. So what changed? Did the internet change? No. They still have Comcast. And I wanted to make sure, did the Comcast router, I started thinking about this, and did something change around the IP address? And at that time, Untangle called me right before 8 o'clock. I must have been the tech's last call of the night for the weekend. And he was great. And he logged in and we're looking at the same things. And he says, everything looks good here. He says, can I create a test account and test the VPN? He's like, yeah, I'm seeing what you're seeing. I went to the port forward rules. For OpenVPN, you have to forward port 1194 unless you're making the change somewheres within the configuration file. Or I looked and I read off the IP address that it's forwarding to, and the tech was like, Mike, that's not the IP address of the firewall. And it was off. The IP address of the firewall changed, so the port forward was just going into nowhere land. And once I put the right IP address in there, and then I don't know why I had thought I made that a static IP address and made a reservation so it would never be, it could never be changed. It was great. It worked immediately. And so before 8 p.m. Friday night, I was able to email the owner and a couple of the CPAs telling them, let her rip, go. It's up. The VPN's working. So that was cool, being able to do that. Solved a few things over the weekend. I was really happy. I was glad that everything was going great with SharePoint for Magnus Box. I was monitoring that. I'm trying to think what else. I should have made more notes of. I was on a roll. Like anything that was hitting me over the weekend, I was just knocking out and solving. And that was pretty cool. So, here's another one. And this was on Friday. Yes. No. When did I figure this out? I figured this out on Sunday. Dental office bought a new HP printer. You could print from Word, you can print from Excel, can print from Outlook, but not EagleSoft, their main software. I was like, why is that erroring? Everything's great. I went through the driver. I was going through everything. And it all of a sudden dawned on me, I'm going to go old school on this. Give the printer a static IP address. Then go in, pick the printer, and then change the port. Went through Windows 10 where it automatically seen the printer, but then went in and changed the port to a standard TCP/IP port. I created that port, set it. Now it's just TCP/IP direct to the printer. Voila, everything's printing. So I documented that. They had like a dozen workstations. And I remoted in and did a couple, and then just needed confirmation Monday morning that these things were printing. They look like they printed, but you don't know when you're not on site. So I was with the admin on Monday morning. Things are printing, and she's like, "Oh, send me those instructions so I can." Yep, no problem. So did that. Now, something we learned. And something happened Wednesday and also earlier in the week. My son needed to upgrade 2 systems this week from Home to Pro. Windows 11 Home. We successfully upgraded to Windows 11 Pro using an OEM Windows 7 Pro key. That is correct. We had no idea whether this would work or not, and I have a bunch of 7 Pro keys just kind of wasting away in one of my email folders, and I had my son try. I said, give this a try before I go down the path and go purchase another key, and it worked. And so if it works with Windows 11, well, yesterday, my son was presented with a system that had same thing. We had to get it to Pro, and it was Windows 10. And I said, here you go. I'm going to send you another Windows 7 Pro key. and it worked. So, lesson for everybody that does what I do. If you can find legitimate Windows 7 Pro keys, like you're retiring that system or throwing that away or whatever, and it was Windows 7, make sure you take a picture of that key. That is worth to be able to upgrade to a Pro version. So, I mean, that's great, and it's good to know. So, very happy about that. I had a note here. I wanted to make sure everybody knew that. Let's see what else. Fixed a OneDrive syncing for a client by creating new local profiles. Remember, I talked about where I decoupled the system from Azure, and it's all because the one system has the person wants access for personal and work, and the OneDrive has to be cleanly syncing to the desktop. So I was able to decouple the laptop from Azure, made sure that worked first. Then I created local profiles everywhere. And on the work login, where I have the username -work on both systems, did OneDrive, and now it's syncing perfect. The user wants to be able to put something on the desktop on the laptop and it's sync, but wants to be able to log into a separate profile with OneDrive, but for the personal OneDrive account. And that is now working. This is why I won the account, because the IT company that put her on Azure and could not solve this. And this is something that was great. And remember, I talked about this. This was the client where I almost walked away from, and I sent a very nice email. This is it, and it's working. Everything's good. We're moving along. And the next thing is creating a SharePoint site and having her share that within the other people in the organization. That's a piece of cake. So that's next on the agenda. So everything's going good. They're on a retainer contract for support. I'm monitoring everything in Synchro. Happy. I have won the proposal for a client that is, this was another one where, remember, I talked about this a few weeks ago, where I want them to completely fire and remove their current IT support, because this is the ones where I couldn't do anything, and they have a grip around the client. And I said, until they do that, well, the board of directors looked at my proposal, said, fire that company, the old company, and we want Mike Smith and his company. And I'm like, hey, I got an email this week on that. So then it was like, okay, what's our next steps, Mike? And so I gave them what they should do for their other old client, all the password, their old support, the passwords I need. And that's about a dozen systems coming on, and a bunch of Macs as part of that. That's coming on a nice retainer support contract. They have an on-prem email server that I'm going to migrate to Microsoft. So I guarantee there's going to be stories about that. So, and I am already armed with the proper auto discover that has to happen. So I'm ready, because I've done that years ago, ripping Exchange off of a local server and migrating to either ShareWeb or Microsoft. And so we're going to take them directly to Microsoft. So that is a big project. So I have to add an SSL certificate for a client, because they're not doing any transactions or anything, but you can't have a business today and have it report that it's not secure. You can't do that. See, yeah, I think this is all just about, GoDaddy and Google wanting to make money. And years ago, now Chrome says this, it's not secure. So you have to comply. So I was playing around, and I asked Chat GPT, which, by the way, is becoming so popular, it's not available as much as I would like. Like sometimes I go there and you get the message for free, hey, demand is too heavy right now, come back. So I asked, and I got a pretty good answer here that I'm going to read. I asked ChatGPT, what is an SSL certificate? An SSL secure socket layer certificate is a small data file that provides a secure connection between a website and a user's web browser. The certificate is used to establish an encrypted link between the server and client, ensuring that all data transmitted between them remains secure and private. An SSL certificate typically contains information about the identity of the website and the certificate authority that issued the certificate, as well as a public key used for encryption. When a user accesses a website with an SSL certificate, their browser checks to make sure that the certificate was issued by a trusted authority and that it is still valid. If everything checks out, the browser establishes a secure connection with the website, indicated by a padlock icon in the browser's address bar and HTTPS in the URL. It finishes, having an SSL certificate is important for any website that collects sensitive information from its users, such as passwords, credit card numbers, and personal information. See, that's what it used to be for. Now you got to have it for everything. An SSL certificate provides an extra layer of security and helps to protect users' information from being intercepted by third parties. That was an excellent description of an SSL. And all I did was type that in. Boy, we're going to see more and more and more use. I even got some great ideas. I'm trying it out. Like, client called and their mouse is constantly freezing. And I said, mouse constantly freezing on a laptop. And I got a bunch of things to try. And none of them worked. What we found was that, on this particular one, that the transmitter was too far away from the mouse, and that's why it was kind of stuttering. It wasn't communicating properly, and there was some things in the way. And when that got cleaned up, everything was working. So, but I'm trying it out, and if it's available, type in the request, type in the question, see what you get. And now I'm thinking, boy, are we all going to be replaced by some AI? Some IT AI to be able to solve all the computer problems? Just wanted to throw that out there. So, another link for tonight. And this was pretty cool because I read Mac Rumors and they have a tip. How to get Siri to alert you when your iPhone battery is low. And I'm going to have the instructions here in the link. Very simple. You launch Shortcuts, which is an app. You tap Automation. Then create Personal Automation. You pick Battery Level and tap Falls Below 50% and use the slider. So I use the slider down to 20%. Change the battery level at which you would like to get notified. Tap Next, add an action, and then tap Speak Text. And then just Next and play for the symbol, tap Next, and it just tells you all the steps here. In the final screen, toggle off, Ask Before Running. Tap Don't Ask, and then pick Done. My phone will now speak to me and tell me the battery level is low when it starts to hit 20%. So really glad that I seen that. and I would like to, you know, just share those kind of things for automation, which I thought was pretty cool. I know I got a lot of Apple users that listen to the show. All right, so let's get to email. I got one email, and this is another follow-up from Anthony, who's been helping me and sending great info for SharePoint drive mapping. And he writes, just caught your show and just wanted to follow up one more thing. You had a concern for hard drive space when syncing, but it doesn't actually download the files. They are just placeholders, I believe is what they call them. Looks like the file is there, but if you look at in File Explorer, it will have a little cloud by it, which means, of course, that it's only in the cloud and not actually downloaded yet. It only downloads when you double click on it, or you can right click on any of the file or folders and pick always keep on the device. He has great examples that he sent. Then he has a link that I'm also going to add, which is how to overcome SharePoint 5,000 item limit threshold. So I'm going to also add that link. Anthony, thank you so much. All right. That is it for tonight's show. I want to thank everybody for downloading and staying subscribed. Don't forget, please support the sponsors. Instant House Call for your remote access needs, Magnus Box for your online backup needs, and Fab's Auto Backup Pro 7. My son's going to be using that tomorrow as we're migrating a system for client from one computer to another. Of course, we provided the new system, and he's going to be using Fab's. That's the way to go. You know, he's going to take the hard drive out and then just add that and just pick transfer. And we're set. And maybe a couple other little settings, and that's it. So that is it for tonight. Remember, next show will be Thursday, February 23rd. Go Eagles for the Super Bowl this Sunday. I'll see everybody. Same time, same channel. Bye-bye.